This TikToker traded up from nothing to a house and then gave this house away to another TikTok user in need, only to find out a year later that that person she gave it to destroyed the house and is now trying to ruin her life. My main question is why? But it's safe to say that what started as one of the more wholesome stories to come out of social media recently ended up in becoming one of the most heartbreaking examples of kindness being taken advantage of. So, this TikToker spent 18 months of her life trading up from a bobby pin to get a house. She then completely renovated it and gave it away to someone in need, only to find out that it was destroyed and abandoned roughly a year later, followed by accusations that she was a fraud. And the worst part is, the one who accused the TikToker of being a fraud and destroyed the house was the same TikToker who had been given the house in the first place. How does that even happen? But before we dive into that story, if you've never heard of the whole trading up concept before, it's essentially what it says on the tin. You start with something completely worthless, and then you just keep trading it up until I guess you're happy. And if you stay persistent enough and are lucky enough to meet a bunch of kind people and you're very public with it on social media, you could end up with something pretty amazing, especially when you tie it into doing something charitable. And this whole thing was popularized back in 2005 when a man by the name of Kyle McDonald began with just one red paperclip. Almost an entire year later, and after only 14 trades, he ended up with an actual house. And since then, dozens of social media creators have made their own spin-off versions of this trend, including Ryan Trahan, who probably had the most popular version of this called the Penny Challenge. But after taking some inspiration from the original challenge, in 2022, a TikToker decided to revive the concept and put a fresh take on it. Instead of keeping the final reward she ended up with, she chose to give it away to someone who actually needed it. And unlike back in 2005 when the original creator of the One Red Paperclip project first attempted it, we now live in an era of masses being on social media. So turning this journey into content was a no-brainer and no doubt helped tremendously with this challenge. So meet Demi Skipper, the TikToker who saw the One Red Paperclip as a chance to do something positive. She created the TradeMe project, in which she started to trade from a single bobby pin with the ultimate goal of eventually ending up with a house. Here she documented her entire journey on social media channels, posting videos of each trade as she slowly worked her way up from that bobby pin to increasingly valuable. After landing the Chipotle celebrity card, which granted unlimited free food for a year plus a fully catered dinner for 50 people, totaling an estimated value of $20,000, many people believed that Demi's challenge had actually peaked. Some people said trading it away would be the worst mistake of her entire journey, because no one would ever offer anything worth more than that. But Demi did not listen. Determined to prove them wrong, she carefully mapped out her next steps. Her focus then shifted to celebrities who were die-hard Chipotle fans. She became the Bureau of Burritos. If someone had ever been photographed holding a Chipotle burrito, chances are they were already on her radar. Demi actually got close to closing a deal with a couple of NFL players, but those negotiations ended up falling through in the last minute. Then, after months of dead ends, an unexpected email came through from a woman by the name of Alyssa, proudly calling herself Chipotle's biggest fan. She reached out from Canada. Alyssa ran a flower business and was willing to offer something that completely flipped the game: an off-the-grid trailer equipped with solar panels and a Tesla Powerwall, valued at about $40,000. And against all odds, Demi had found someone who not only matched, but double the card's value.
I am so excited to let you guys know that I've officially made my new trade, and it's worth $40,000. In my last trade, I traded 3 attractors for a Chipotle celebrity card, which gives its new owner unlimited Chipotle for an entire year, starting from the day they get the card. This trade, like so many others, was a tough one. So I got to work until I found Alyssa. Alyssa runs a sustainable flower company called Ladybugs, and also happens to be one of the biggest Chipotle fans I've ever met.
But just as it seemed like everything was falling into place, Demi was hit with one of the most frustrating hurdles of her entire journey. It was 2020. We were still in the post-COVID era, so stuff was locked down. So because of that, borders, they've been closed since 2020 from the US to Canada. So it wasn't super easy to just move a trailer from Canada into the US. And after weeks of navigating paperwork and border regulations, she finally found a way to make it happen, only to be told that the trailer's wheels were illegal under US transportation standards. So Demi, once again, was stuck. She then called the department every day, even offering to file the paperwork herself if that's what it took. But there was no way around it. She had to wait. For 3 entire months, the $40,000 trailer sat untouched in Canada. Eventually, though, a kind follower of her project offered to pick up the trailer and store it in her driveway near the US border until Demi could get it. So she and her husband packed up their car and drove 15 hours north. Once they finally laid eyes on the trailer, they decorated it, photographed it, and got it ready for the next trade. And before they even made it back home, the next opportunity had already come knocking. Because while her husband was driving them back home, Demi was back on the grind, scrolling through messages, searching for her next trade until she found a DM of a woman who showed interest in the trailer. So Demi messaged her back to see if there was any real potential here. The woman revealed that she was a professional house flipper, someone who'd owned around 15 properties at a given time. Apparently, she'd been following the TradeMe project from pretty much the very beginning, just waiting for the right time to come along. And she wanted to trade one of her homes, a house in Tennessee, for the trailer.
Okay, we're walking up to it. This feels so surreal. Oh my God. Oh my God. A year and a half of trading a single bobby pin until I get a house. And I've done it.
So that was it. After a long 28 trades, countless hours of negotiating, Demi finally landed the big one, an actual house.
Is this my house? Answer, please.
You walk through the front door and you're immediately in the main living room of the house with wall-to-wall hardwood floors. Next, just off the living room is the kitchen, with enough room for a small table, but definitely in need of some new cabinets and counters. Going to the back of the house is the first bedroom with new carpet and a big-sized closet, followed by the second bedroom down the hall, with also a good-sized closet and a great view out the windows to the backyard. Lastly is the bathroom with a tub. It's definitely dated, but can be fixed up to be really beautiful.
But here's the thing. The house she ended up with was pretty much falling apart. Not only were there a lot of structural issues, but it was genuinely just very outdated.
We got a call that things weren't going as planned, so we went to go check it out. First, the structure that's supposed to keep the wall up doesn't actually connect to the ground. It looks like it's completely rotted away. Second, there's nearly nothing holding up this floor. Right here, you can see 3 joists, but there's supposed to be many more of these. And then it rained.
And there is 6 inches of standing water.
However, Demi and her husband, they were not going to let that stop them, so they decided to renovate the entire place from top to bottom. And it's safe to say, they absolutely crushed it.
And here's what it looks like now. We fixed the foundation, put in new hardwood floors, completely redid the kitchen with all new appliances, added a washer dryer in the hallway, new beds, including a bed for her dog, and a brand new bathroom. I can't believe it all came from a single bobby pin.
They got a new roof, new appliances, new furniture, and beds. They even updated the siding and added an outdoor grilling patio in the backyard. I mean, they turned this entire old-looking house into a brand new home. And the fact they did all of that just to provide a home for someone else is extremely impressive. Once the renovation was complete, Demi put out a word that they were looking for someone to take ownership of the house, and they started accepting applications. And I can only imagine how tough this time actually was, because they received over 2,000 submissions from people explaining why they needed help. And after reviewing all of them, one person stood out above everyone else. Her name was Shay. She was a 19-year-old woman from Pennsylvania. In the video of her submission, Shay explained that her mother had passed away in a car accident when she was just 2 years old. So she and her siblings moved in with their dad. But then he unfortunately got cancer a few years later, became very depressed, and ended up... So she then moved in with her grandparents, but her grandpa passed away and her grandma got pneumonia and had been hospitalized for an extended period of time. During the time her grandma was in the hospital, her uncle moved in. And according to Shay, he was abusive and had problems with alcohol. And when her grandma then eventually came home from the hospital, she just wasn't the same person anymore.
That same month, my grandmother was discharged from the nursing home. And that gave me a little bit of hope, and I thought that maybe it would switch its act up a bit and everything would be good. Unfortunately, that was not the case.
So obviously, going off of this story, Shay's entire childhood was definitely tough. She had never really had stability or a place to call home. By the time she was 18, she couldn't mentally handle living in that situation anymore. So she moved in with a friend. And that's where she was living when she submitted her application to the TradeMe project. And after seeing this, Demi and her husband decided she would be the perfect person for this house. And most importantly, this wasn't going to come with any mortgage, rent, or monthly bills. It was completely free, no strings attached, which is an extremely charitable thing to do. So Demi flew out to Pennsylvania to tell Shay in person. And you can see how grateful Shay looked when she found out the surprise.
Hi! Oh, we're here! We came all the way here because I felt like I wanted to see you in person, and I'm here to tell you that the house is yours. There's no way. Yes. It's yours. Yeah. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh.
And it did not stop there. Demi also attended Shay's graduation, helped her boyfriend, and his mother move into the house, and even set up an Amazon wish list so her followers could donate household essentials and have them delivered directly to Shay's new address. And then on top of all of that, they gave her a $10,000 check to help her get started in her new life in Tennessee. She really went above and beyond for this new family. This, without a doubt, is like someone winning the lottery. To get a free home to live in perpetually, 10 grand, a bunch of free stuff in the house. It's safe to say the TradeMe project completely changed Shay's life. But unfortunately, that's where everything started to go downhill very fast. So Shay, her boyfriend, and her mother moved into the house and got settled. And for a while, everything seemed fine. But then Demi started getting messages from Shay's neighbors. Apparently, there were several packages sitting outside of the house, getting rained on, and the neighbor was really concerned about them. Demi immediately reached out to Shay to ask about it, and Shay explained that she was back in Pennsylvania visiting for a few days, and she couldn't find a flight back to Tennessee. Okay, no big deal. People visit their families. That's normal. Except a week went by and Demi still hadn't heard anything from Shay, and the packages, they were still sitting there. So she then reached out again, asking if Shay was coming home yet or if the neighbor could drop off the packages. She also asked if Shay could take some pictures of the rugs of the house because the company that donated them wanted to use those photos for marketing purposes. But unfortunately, there was no response. So she kept trying, and then finally, Shay replied, saying that she would be home that night and she would take the pictures. But that night came and went, and nothing happened. 3 more days passed before Demi reached out again, and Shay's excuse was she had only had Wi-Fi sometimes, which doesn't quite add up, but okay. So for the next 2 months, the same pattern kept repeating. Demi would reach out, get no response at all, or some random excuse to why Shay wasn't back yet or couldn't do whatever she was being asked to do. Eventually, Demi just donated all those packages to Goodwill because she couldn't get a straight answer about when Shay would actually be there to pick up the packages. And in October, Demi finally asked the question that was probably on her mind for months. She flat out asked Shay if she was actually planning to move into the house, because if not, she wanted to give it to someone who would actually live there and appreciate it. And Shay's response was interesting, to put it lightly. She said she definitely planned on moving in, but admitted that she had booked flights multiple times and then canceled them in the last minute because she was scared. She mentioned being afraid because she didn't have a driver's license and would have to rely on buses or Uber to get around. She also mentioned her dog, saying how much it loved it there and how she wanted to pass the house down to someone else who needed it. Demi's response was incredibly understanding and patient. She said that she totally got it, and she said she was proud of Shay and she didn't mind managing everything while Shay figured things out. But despite Demi's continued patience and support, 14 months went by with basically no updates and no real communication. So after 14 months of managing a house from out of state with no real contact from the person who was actually living there, Demi and her husband decided they needed to drive to Tennessee to check on the property themselves. And what they found was so much worse than what they could have imagined. The house was completely trashed. There were urine stains on the floor, trash shoved in the closets, the kitchen was a disaster, and the fridge was full of rotten food.
So August 13th, 2023, I actually went down to Clarksville to see what was happening with this house. She hadn't been there in 14 months, and this is where things get insane. We got to the house, and the house was completely ruined. Everything inside, but essentially there was pee on the ground. All of the garbage that had been used in the month that she was there was jammed into closets. So you can imagine what it looks like after 14 months. I've never seen anything like this. I cried in the front yard of the house. Just can't imagine that somebody would do this. And after 14 months of me talking with her this entire time and her saying she was moving back, we're just waiting, we just needed more time. And I honestly believed that.
You may take a truck. You might have some in the truck.
But this wasn't just neglect. There was intentional damage throughout the house. Things that would cost serious money to repair that had been deliberately destroyed. This place was basically uninhabitable after all of that work that they had done for free, essentially. There was no real upside with all the effort that they put in to this house except for giving a nice home to someone who was in need. The amount of time, energy and money they put into this place to have it look like this? Why? Why would someone ever do that to someone? So immediately after discovering the state of the house, Demi messaged Shay, confronting her about the condition of the property. She said that she was shocked and devastated from what she found, and that if she didn't hear back, she would assume that due to the property damage and the health violations, Shay would no longer have access to the house. This time, Shay actually responded with an apology. She admitted that she was lost and confused about being an adult, and that she was only 19 years old and didn't know what she was doing. Shay then said that she was sorry about everything and that she was upset and disappointed in herself as well. No matter how you've been brought up, you can easily recognize someone's generosity here. And to completely neglect that and use the excuse of, oh, I'm only 19 years old, that is just laughably stupid. That is pathetic. I, like probably most of you guys, had moved out of my parents' house by the time I was 19. And I doubt any of us left our first home in that condition. So Demi rightfully reclaimed the house due to the extensive damage, and Shay accepted this with no resistance whatsoever. But then, 2 weeks later, as you can guess, the story just got even weirder. Shay then decided to post a TikTok video calling out Demi and making it seem like Demi had just decided to take the house back for no good reason at all. Hold up, what? What? So at this point, Demi had stayed completely silent about what had actually happened. She hadn't said anything publicly about the condition of the house or anything about Shay's months of absence. So then I guess she had to make this video.
You might have seen this video. In order to protect Shay, I had decided not to post anything about this entire situation, but now it's time to come with the receipts.
But when Shay posted that original video, Demi started getting bombarded with hate comments and messages from people who essentially thought that she cruelly took the house away from someone in need. This basically forced Demi's hand to provide all the receipts. So she had no choice but to share the screenshots of their text conversations and explain what had actually happened. The months of no communication, the trashed house, everything that we've covered up until now. And after Demi's side of the story blew up, it didn't take long for Shay to make all of her social media accounts private and remove all of her content. And as far as I know, since Shay never signed off for the house transfer documents, Demi still owns the house and presumably had to spend even more money getting it back to a livable condition. However, after everything that happened, she understandably stopped sharing any future updates about this situation publicly, which is honestly just heartbreaking on every level. You have Demi, who spent so much time and probably tens of thousands of dollars turning a worthless bobby pin into a fully renovated house. Also, she could, I guess, try to change someone's life for the better. But then you have Shay, who, regardless of her rough circumstances, showed up and destroyed that dream. And unfortunately for Shay, that might have been the handout of her lifetime. Because honestly, I don't think there will ever be anyone else in her life that will step up for her like the stranger on the internet Demi did for her. The fact that it ended this way is just tragic for everyone involved. The truth is, like, we may never know the full story of what happened in that house during those 14 months. Was it just teenage irresponsibility? Was there some substance abuse involved? Maybe some mental health issues that weren't being addressed? Like, could it be that Shay was secretly renting the house out to other people and they were the ones who destroyed this? Who knows? There's so many random possibilities here. Or maybe the problem was giving such a huge responsibility to someone so young who had never had any stability in their life. When you've never had a real home, maybe you don't know how to take care of one. Who knows? But what is clear is someone was given an incredible opportunity, a completely free house, no strings attached, along with $10,000 and a bunch of items, and somehow ended up trashing the place and disappearing for over a year. This whole situation is just a reminder that real life is very complicated, and sometimes even the most generous gestures can go wrong with no fault of the person trying to help. But hopefully, stories like this don't discourage people from being kind and generous in the future. The world definitely needs more people like Demi, who are willing to go out of their way and help others, even if it doesn't always work out the way they'd hoped for. But either way, what Demi and her husband did was incredibly inspiring, and nobody can ever take that away from them. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe, drop a like on this video if you enjoyed the story, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. No way did a fly into my softbox. I've had one fly terrorize me for the last, 2 days. How long do those flies? 28 days?